I think that this idea that talking about salary is a no-no, that it's not polite, that's not good etiquette, does not serve you. It just serves the employer. Because if we don't talk to each other about our salaries and the employers know everything about everybody's salaries, then there is a terrible difference in power, and that will not help you in your salary negotiation.
Hi, I'm Renata Bernarde, and this is the Job Hunting Podcast, where I interview experts and professionals and discuss issues that are important for job hunters and those who are working to advance their careers. So make sure that you subscribe and follow, and let's dive right in.
Hello, everybody. This is episode 200 of the Job Hunting Podcast, and it will be a short one because in a couple of hours I'm checking in and flying back to Melbourne. I'm currently in Brazil, my home country, visiting family and friends. And it's been over 2 months that I've been traveling and working overseas. I went first to Europe to visit my son who lives in England, and now in Brazil, and it's been super busy but wonderful. I love the digital nomad lifestyle, but I wouldn't do it forever. I think I've reached the point where I can't wait to go home, and I'm so excited to be flying back and seeing my husband again. It's been a month since we saw each other, so it's going to be really lovely. And I'm also craving the winter Melbourne weather. I know it's crazy. If you're in Melbourne, you're probably rolling your eyes, but even in Brazil, even though it's supposed to be winter here, it's so hot. And I've had too much heat all over Europe and in Brazil, and I can't wait to get some cold weather before spring starts in Melbourne. It's such a beautiful time of the year to be going back to Melbourne. I'm so excited. But can I just say, this is episode 200. I can't believe it. I'm so excited about the podcast. In the past 12 months, it has doubled in size in terms of listeners and reach, and it's just beyond my wildest dreams. I never thought, nobody ever thought, that I would be doing this weekly for such a long time. It is a big labor of love, it takes a lot of my time, but I love doing it. I love interviewing guests. I have so many interesting guests lined up. Interviews are happening in a couple of weeks' time in Melbourne. I have about 4 or 5 interviews already booked, and I will be dropping them to you in the next few months. And I know you like my solo episodes as well because they're some of the most downloadable episodes since the beginning. And I'm so happy that you like listening to to what I have to say. And I get emails and messages from listeners every day. Every day I get messages, and it just warms my heart and makes me want to keep doing this. So thank you so much. And as you know, whenever you're ready to work with me, go to my website and find out the services that I have as well, because I design them for you in the same way that I designed this podcast. And every step of the way, it's just a little bit more that I add to provide you with the guidance that you need to get that amazing job and have a wonderful career ahead of you. Gain control over your career and have a wonderful future. So today, the topic just fell on my lap. I didn't have to do much work to research it. I was sort of thinking, what am I going to do for episode 200? I'm going to be overseas. I can't interview anybody. It can't be fancy or complicated. It needs to be simple. And then a wonderful journalist, Beck Mulligan, reached out to ask me a few questions about salary negotiation, specifically for women. So she works at the Australian Women's Weekly. If you are in Australia, I don't need to tell you that the Australian Women's Weekly is a wonderful magazine that's been going on since the 30s, and it's super well known. It has this name, The Weekly, and we call it The Weekly in Australia, but it's actually a monthly magazine. I never understood that as, a migrant. I was like, why is it called Weekly? But anyhow, it's been going on forever. It's very well known. It's the sort of magazine that interviews prime ministers and fancy, important celebrities, and has a mix of fashion and thought leadership and a bit about business, a bit about art. It's wonderful. And to be invited to, help write an article like this for me is just cherry on the top of this week of celebration for the Job Hunting Podcast. So if you're listening, Beck Mulligan, thank you so much. And because I did so much research for the article, and the article is actually not that big, I ended up with so much information here that I can share with you today. And this is stuff that, of course, I discuss with clients and people that book one on one consultations with me. And I think it's important for you to know as well. So here we go. First, let's talk about the key factors that you should consider when you're entering a salary negotiation. It's very important that you know how much you're worth and that you do the research and understand the market rate for your skills and your experience. Now, my spiel is slightly different from what I read out there, and I see other coaches and other articles write about how to work the salary conversation into recruitment and selection. For example, that you should never name your salary, that you should always flip the question back to the recruiter or the employer. I find that really awkward. I don't know anybody that can actually do this properly. I think it's much better for you to really know how much you're worth, how much your skills and experience and the types of jobs that you do get paid in your area, your region. If you're in a big town and a big city, if you're in New York or Los Angeles, it would be different from, a small town. And this is something that you need to know. Also, different industries pay differently. So if you are in finance, it's different from health, or if you are in the corporate sector, it's also different from the nonprofit sector. So understanding that is important. One thing that you can do that's quite easily is Google it, and websites like Glassdoor, Payscale, Salary.com will provide you with a sense of what professionals in your position and industry are making in your area. You can also use some groups in Reddit. I know that there are some Facebook groups that are really wonderful to ask questions like this in confidence. So research as much as you can. Talk to people. You might have, colleagues and mentors that can support you. I think that this idea that talking about salary is a no-no, that it's not polite, that's not good etiquette, does not serve you. It just serves the employer. Because if we don't talk to each other about our salaries and the employers know everything about everybody's salaries, then there is a terrible difference in power, and that will not help you in your salary negotiation. And industry norms as well. So different industries, they have different pay scales, and they have different norms. They might have some enterprise bargaining agreements, for example. So it's important for you to understand the specific issues in your industry in regards to salary negotiations, because you might be asking for a salary that is not within the pay scale that your profession is paying in that industry, for example. It's also important to understand the company. If you're currently working, how are things going? What's the financial health of your organization? If you're applying for a specific company, it's important for you to do that research as well. You can Google News, so you go to Google and search for the organization, find news, and go to finance news, and make sure that whatever you're asking is something that they can afford as well, and check the compensation policies that organizations have. So some companies have a policy of paying above market. It's a philosophy, really. Well-known Boston Consulting Group usually pays above market, while other consultancies, for example, let's say KPMG, will pay market average. right? So understanding that compensation philosophy is important, and it shows that you've done your research, that you know what you're talking about, that you have spoken to your mentors and your colleagues, and that you understand those sort of nuances within your sector and your profession. The other thing that you should do ahead of discussing salary conversations is to quantify your achievements. So be prepared to discuss how your work has impacted your company if you're looking for a salary raise or for a salary adjustment. Sometimes it's not really a rise that you're seeking, it's just an adjustment. Like you're paying below market, or I'm paying less than my male colleagues. And, understanding not only the market rate and the industry norms and the financial health of the organization, the compensation philosophy, all of those things are important. But then you need to know, what is it that you brought to the company? What have been your contributions? And those metrics, those numbers, make your arguments much more enticing, much more safe, for you to go into a conversation as well. Those specific examples of your actual contributions to your team, to your project, to your department, they are important. And some people forget to take note. So if you haven't been doing that, even if you're not seeking salary negotiations right now, start taking notes of the metrics. It could be percentages or dollar amounts or numbers of people that, walk through the door if you're in retail, or new clients or market growth. Try to quantify your achievements and practice negotiation. It's really important to role play your negotiation with a mentor, or if possible, invest in hiring a coach. A lot of people contact me for that. They book one-on-one consultations for salary negotiations. I love doing that. I've said that before in this podcast. I think it's super exciting when somebody has an offer on hand, and they want to negotiate it so that they get the best possible outcome if they're going to leave one job for another, or if they don't have one, and they are about to engage with an employer. So, especially if you're uncomfortable with the idea of negotiating, or if you've done it in the past and it hasn't worked for you, then, investing in hiring a coach or talking to a mentor can boost your confidence, can help your narrative, find the right argument and the right way of bringing it up, the right language to use. And for women specifically, it can be sometimes really important also to strike a balance between being assertive and maintaining rapport. So, I work with women that are going through salary negotiations, and we work on that because the truth is, there are biases, understanding the gender bias and being aware. I mean, it's unfair. Okay. There's nothing that I can do in the short term about that, but I can help you face it, and making you aware of it if you're a woman, that there could be potential biases as you navigate the conversation is important. And again, choosing the right tone and the right narrative and the balance between assertiveness and collaboration, and making that conversation really flow well for both you and the employer is really important. If you want more details about that, and if you're a woman, you might want to read the Australian Weekly article, and I'll put a link to that below because we wrote it for women. So that is a good article to read, and I'm super proud to be part of that. So, yeah, I'll have a link to it below for you. What else? Stay updated. As you progress in your career, keep updating your knowledge about market salaries, and revisit your negotiation strategies, and make sure that you are being paid within the range and the scale of your industry, your geographical area. Don't lose sight of that. Don't make the mistake that I see some clients of mine that have made in the past, and we're now working to adjust it, that you kind of lose track because you're so busy working that you're not sort of paying attention to the opportunities during meetings with your boss, during conversations with your colleagues, to get, market intelligence, or discuss how you can transition in your career, increase your salary or adjust your salary to match your colleagues or to match industry standards. So it's important to stay updated and maintain that conversation going when it's, appropriate, of course. And again, that positive and cooperative tone in those conversations for salary negotiations is super important. This salary negotiation does not have to be antagonistic, right? It does not have to be. You should feel comfortable and confident raising it. It's part of you evolving in your career, and it's a collaboration. It shouldn't be a confrontation. So this is really important to change that mindset and those sort of norms in society that penalize people that raise it, right? So I want you to feel confident and natural as you bring it up, and don't feel like this is going to be a confrontation, because if you walk into that conversation think it's going to be confrontational, you will already sort of start engaging it in a way that is confrontational. So, yeah, I hope that helps. And I would love to know if you have more questions about salary negotiations. If you do, if there are specific circumstances that you've been involved in that you didn't know how to navigate, and if there has been a job offer that you received that you thought that you accepted without negotiating it, for example, and you regretted it, if there are any sort of questions or issues that you faced, please send them to me. You can reply back to my newsletter if you are a newsletter subscriber. If you're not, there's a link below for you to subscribe, or you can send me a message on LinkedIn, for example. I would love to hear from you because it's such an interesting topic, and I think I could do more about this. And I want to sort of investigate further. So don't forget to come to me if you have any questions. And if you use some of the ideas here today and you are successful in negotiating a better salary for you, better terms, better outcomes, I would love to hear from you too. So again, reply back to my email. I'm sort of bigger than I was a year ago or 2 years ago, but I still read my emails and I still check my messages. So, it's that wonderful time when I'm getting so many great messages and, sometimes good feedback as well of things that I can improve. So, thank you so much, all the listeners here today, and keep listening and keep giving me inspiration and ideas for future episodes. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye for now.